Hello. Welcome back to Let's Talk Ray Bradbury. If you have not subscribed to our channel, please do. We need just a few more subscribers to reach 1,100, and with your help, we can do that this week. All right, so here on Let's Talk Ray Bradbury, I do short story reviews of the works of Ray Bradbury. Today's tale is The Cold Wind and the Warm. In this tale, set in Dublin, six strangers coming from Sicily check into the Royal Hibernian Hotel in Dublin. Their leader is a man named David Snell Orkney, probably originally from there, but their presence causes sensation. It's winter in Dublin, there's nothing going on, it's cold, it's miserable, and everybody is hanging out at Heber Finn's pub. When their presence becomes known, the people there, the gang of barflies, begin following them to find out what they're doing. They find them on the local green, sort of muttering and singing and reciting poetry and standing in the rain and waiting for something. And it all seems very, very strange to them. And then the group stops by the pub and they begin talking, and they realize they're actually pretty much very similar people. They're a gang of people, guys, actually, all men who hang out, who like to sing drinking songs and the like. But in the course of this time together, the group tells them that that they've been traveling the world and something was missing from their lives. Apparently, none of them had experienced anything but eternal summer for 7 years because they had been basically snowbirds, as we call them in the U.S., people who head south in the winter and follow the warm weather. But in the absence of bad weather, they realized that they needed rain, they needed cold, they needed the fall colors, the winter colors, and all the things that the Dubliners had come to take for granted because they'd been living sort of in this perpetual state of fine Irish weather, as some would call it. So, not a great story, really. It's a little lackluster. I feel like Bradbury had a point to make, and that is sort of the reason for the existence of the story. And a lot of times it does not work out. There's a problem, I think, with stories when your message or your agenda sort of takes precedence. Not that those types of tales can't work, but generally, if you don't have an interesting character or plot or story otherwise, when you're missing some of that other creative element, it can feel like the moral of the story is sort of pigeonholed into it, and that's sort of the case here. But there are some sort of interesting observations. One is that these sort of poor Irish, these Dubliners, they're kind of stuck with the world they're in. They can't afford to fly or sail around the world like these people who have come from Sicily. When David Snell Orkney, as the guy's name is, shows up and he checks into the hotel, he signs with a gold pen. So this is a person of means, whereas these other guys are low-class, sort of working-class men hanging out in the pub. That said, I think one of the other morals of the story is that people are pretty much the same everywhere. Wherever you go, there is the local bar crowd. Every sort of area has its scene, whether it's a bar scene or a coffee house scene or pool hall scene or whatever the case may be. There's always sort of that local thing going on, and sometimes they'll look sort of strangely at outsiders, but then if you get to know them, you might have an interesting conversation. I think then the other last point I wanted to make was this story is very much about losing sight of the beauty and what makes where you are special. Everybody longs to be somewhere else, but if you do take the time, you can see that there's a lot of beauty in the place where you are currently at. That's something that's really meant a lot to me in recent years. I spent years and years running the local trails, and that happens at a certain speed. And in recent years, I've spent more time on those trails with a camera, just walking, hiking, taking it easy, and paying extra close attention to small details. And it's a different way to see the world that you already live in. So on occasion, be sure to slow yourself down and sort of take stock of what makes your home special. And I said that was the last point. There is one more, but now that I look at my notes, despite all the flaws of the story, you know, its sort of weakness, there is one saving grace, and that is Bradbury's sort of effortless, frenetic pace. This story feels like it has ADHD. It's moving on quick. It's talking too fast, and that does help sort of soften the blow of there not being a whole lot here of interest. But maybe you'll feel differently about it. The Cold Wind and the Warm. Check it out if you can find it anywhere. I read it in this volume up here, Bradbury's Stories, which I am working through, and we are getting ever closer towards the end. Next tale we're going to discuss is The Meadow. So subscribe and tune in for that very, very soon. We have another 35 stories or so to go in this series, and then we'll move on to something else. But in the meantime, I'm going to keep enjoying my exploration of Ray Bradbury. All right, guys, it is Memorial Day here in the U.S. Be sure to remember your veterans. And until next time, find a good book to read. See ya.